Hi, I'm Francis Hellyer, and welcome to my brand new podcast, Metaverse. This is a podcast for the future-minded, a series for anyone on the hunt for the next big thing and all its possibilities and implications. This is Tomorrow's World Today. With each episode, I will chat to those at the top of their fields, from futurists in crypto and space travel to forecasters in business and tech. Together, we will ask the question, what's next? Today, I'm joined by Elina Hiltunen, a leading futurist from Finland, who is a Doctor of Science in Business Administration and a Master of Chemical Engineering. Forbes recently listed her as one of the world's 50 leading female futurists. Her inclusion, no doubt fueled by her groundbreaking creation of a tool which develops the futures of organizations through crowdsourcing. As well as working as a futurist for global brands such as Nokia, Elina is also a leading consultant to companies seeking their best preparedness for the future of their industries. Her experience has helped her forge a career as a keynote speaker, and she's also written 12 books. Elina, it's great to have you on the show.
Thank you. I'm very happy to be here. And now I have to a little bit correct because next month I'm going to publish my 13th book. So,
wow.
and in the beginning of year 22, I'm having my 14th book published. So I'm really excited in writing books.
That's incredible. How do you find the time?
Well, I'm a fast writer, I would say. Yeah. When I have time, I just write, and my fingers start dancing on the keyboard. it's just in my genes, I would say, in my DNA.
Amazing. Well, let's start at the beginning. So how did futurism first grab your interest?
Well, I have to say that I have always been very innovative person and a little bit like artistic person. And my background is in chemical engineer, which is a little bit different than being artistic person. So I wanted to somehow combine these. And at that stage of my studies, I heard about this future studies program that started here in Finland at that time. And then I got so excited about that because then I saw that this is something that you can have this fact-based information and combine it with imagination. So I thought that this is something that it's like me. It's something that I would be very interested in. So then I started to take some courses in this future studies program. And then I started to make my PhD about weak signals, which is something that I'm very fan of, these weak signals. So weird new stuff, new innovations that are happening today that could be something big in the future big trends or even mega trends. I think that weak signals are the most genuine information about the future. So that's why I'm very interested about weak signals.
Amazing stuff. So futurism is a bit of a strange term if you think about it, and it means very different things to different people. So what does it mean to you?
Well, I have to say that in my latest futures book, which was about future of the whole world, and it was talking about megatrends, I made this formula for the future. And because I'm an engineer, so I like formulas. so the formula is like anticipating the future equals facts plus imagination. So futurism for me is that you have to look about the facts, statistics, what is happening now and what has happened in history. And then you have to add a part of imagination to that. And then you can think about different possibilities of the future. But when we think about futurism, it's always about different possibilities. It's not about prediction. It's not about trying to predict the future correctly, because we know that nobody can do that. Only by accident somebody can do it. But you don't know beforehand which of the futures or predictions is going to happen. So the idea with the futurism and futures thinking is that you really have to open your mind for different kind of futures and be prepared for different kind of futures and also to create different kind of futures. For me, I have this concept of futures thinking that I wrote in my first futures book, and it's consists of three parts. It's consists of anticipating the future, so thinking about different possibilities that could happen in the future. Then it's also about innovating the future, so you have to create the future that is best for yourself. Of course, you can't change everything, but you can do something with the future. And then the third part is communicating about the future. So futures thinking is anticipating, innovating, and communicating about the future. And communicating is something that it's working for both directions. So I'm saying something, you are listening, you are thinking, you are commenting on my thoughts, and then I'm learning. And this learning part is very important when it comes to the futures.
That's amazing. And so with your master's in chemical engineering, and then you did a doctorate in business administration, how did these experiences prepare you for your career in futurism and business innovation?
I have to say that I'm a nerd. I'm a geek. I really like all these technological things. And I'm writing actually science fiction now. My next book is going to be a science fiction book, and it's including 7 stories that could happen in the future, and it has this weird technological innovations, like, for example, piece of meat that we are growing in big tanks, and one of the stories is about that. I think that having the technological background is very good when you think about the future, because technology is something that is really going to affect us in the future. And then, of course, the business part isn't very bad to have it either. I was writing a book about future of technology. It's called Technolife 2035. How is technology changing our future? I wrote it with my husband. He's still my husband after writing the book. So in that book, we were having this concept that when you think about the future of technology, it's not only how the technology itself is working, but you have to consider of the society, you have to consider of the business case and the consumers and so on, how to make money with the technology. And so in that sense, I think it's very good that I have these different kind of backgrounds. Actually, one of the things that I also have, it's not only the technology and the business, but it's also the arts. I have been working 1 year as executive in residence in arts university here in Finland. So I was teaching this design thinking for the students, and I think that this is also very good concept when you think about the future, having this design thinking idea.
I think what's interesting for me, first of all, I mean, I'm a geek too. I'm a nerd as well. So I mean, we're going to get on extraordinarily well, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But I think that the idea of futurism and thinking about all the possibilities that the future entails, I mean, it is science fiction. We are practically living in science fiction almost at the moment. You see some of the innovations that are happening right now, some as a consequence of the pandemic, some just because of the way of the world. And it does feel almost, when I think back to being a sort of teenager, that we're living in this crazy world of, we're almost at flying cars. So I think it's amazing that you're not only thinking about the future from a business perspective, but also you have that creativity as well to look at it from a science fiction standpoint.
Yeah, and I have to say that I'm a little bit like crazy person, because I like to test these kind of things too. So, for example, years ago, I had this kind of like NFC chip implanted in my hand.
Wow.
And under the skin. And actually, I was using this chip for opening my door. So I had an electric lock in my house. So then when I went to my home, I just waved my hand in front of the electric lock, and then it recognizes me because it was reading the information from this NFC chip. And so the door opened. I don't have the chip anymore. It was a test. I had it for maybe 1.5 years, and I don't have it anymore, but it was quite funny. Actually, what I liked the most was when I was talking about the chip in my lectures and in some media, also here in Finland. It was the reactions that were something that I was interested about. How people reacted to that. Some people said that, oh, I would never, ever take that kind of chip. And then some people, that was actually quite usual, that people were saying that, how can you do this? And I was like, well, it's like having your ears pierced. So it's like not that much. And I have my dogs chipped, and which is very common. And then there were some people which were saying that aren't you afraid that some companies or some instances are following you? And for me that was a little bit like funny, because with this kind of chip, it doesn't have antenna or battery. It doesn't send any signal. So the only time it was registered to some system was when I was waving my hand in front of the lock. So somehow it was so weird, because people were even like writing Facebook posts that, aren't you afraid that you are followed? And I'm like, no, but did you know that you are followed when writing these notes to Facebook with your mobile phone? So many times I have to say that people just don't have the knowledge about technology. And that's a little bit sad. And especially at the times of COVID, you can see that the knowledge of the technology and all the disinformation, I think it's really sad.
Well, it's like Bill Gates, who's, implanting us all with microchips to track us, isn't it?
Yeah, that is a little bit funny, because I have had the chip in my hand, and I know that that is something that you really notice when this kind of chip. It was a quite big, like needle type of tool that they put, but it was very big tool, and I have to have this kind of, how do you say it in English? It's like that you don't feel. They put this
anesthetic, like an
anesthetic. Yeah, like an anesthetic, that you don't feel that, because that would have hurt very much. And I could really feel, I could have my touch this chip in my hand, and I could feel it, and well I can feel that it's there. So with today's technology, these Bill Gates 5G stuff, it just don't work.
Now the chip is out now, but do you have any plans for any other implants or anything else like that? Body sort of
no, at this time I don't have that. That was actually something that it started with a funny discussion with one CEO of company that were producing this kind of like electric locks, and I was having this chat with the CEO, and he was saying that, well, did you know that you could even have a chip implanted to your hand and open our locks with that system? And I was saying to the CEO that, okay, let's test it. Let's put a chip in my hand. And he was like, really? Are you really that you want to try that? yeah, let's try that. And then we did that test. And well, if there's some people or companies that have these interesting ideas, I might be ready to try these. I'm very open to these different kind of systems and trying different kind of systems. But one of the things that I have also tried is this kind of like Nekomimi cat ears that I was at one phase when I was especially talking about the future of technology. I was having these cat ears, and it was a like gadget that was reading the brain signals that I had. It has the sensor in my forehead and one sensor in my ear, and the other sensor was like checking my pulse, and the other sensor was checking my brain waves. Yeah, there are some brain waves in my head, and then the cat ears, they were moving in the way that what kind of mood I had. So for example, if I was alert, the cat ears were pointing up, and if I was a little bit like sleepy, they were going down. And I was having many of my lectures with having these cat ears, and I have to say that the audience had quite fun at that time. I don't use them anymore, but yeah, that was one time.
And I need to try the cat ears. Then that's the future for me.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit more about your PhD, because I think this really interesting topic about weak signals. Can you elaborate a little bit more about what that means and what you discovered as part of that journey?
Yeah, weak signals are, as I said, they are weird new things that are happening today, and they are something that makes you to react to them, like you are starting to laugh, or you are starting to think that did I hear it right? Is this really something that is happening? It makes you to wonder, really? And you have these kind of like reactions to these new things. And the idea with the weak signal is that one weak signal doesn't tell about future trend, what is happening in the future, but it's like a puzzle. So you have different pieces of puzzle, and then you collect these kind of weak signals, and then you start to fit them together, and you can see that, okay, now I can see a bigger picture with these weak signals, and this could be something in the future. And my idea actually in futures thinking is very much that organizations should crowdsource futures. So I was working in one organization called FinPro, and we were using a tool that I had developed with a company called Data Rangers. And that tool was like for collecting or crowdsourcing collection of weak signal in the organization. And then we were like combining the weak signals to trends and then using them in scenario thinking. So this is something that I'm always emphasizing when it comes to organization. Futures thinking should be something that is happening all the time. It's not just when you do the strategy, maybe once a year or twice a year or once in 2 years. And then you start to think about, well, what are the trends and what are the mega trends? Well, of course, that is good that if you're thinking at least once a year future, but if you want to be effective, future is happening all the time. So the work should be done all the time. And at the best, when you think about organizations, you have maybe tens or hundreds or even thousands of people, and all the people have 2 eyes, 2 ears, so they are sensors for the future. And collecting this kind of information and analyzing this information is very important to see the trends or see the changes that are happening in advance.
So when you work for a company like, I think Nokia was one of the biggest you worked for in Finland,
yeah.
How would that work? What does that entail? As a futurist, what would Nokia need from you, and how would you be able to affect change within an organization like that?
I have to say that I was working at Nokia for 8 months and then I quit. And that is pretty much telling about, well, Nokia and my way of working. I have to say that because I am quite creative, and I have to say that I was too ambitious to work at Nokia's futures team. It was too bureaucratic at the time when I was working there. So I really decided that I have to make this decision. I quit. I didn't have any job where I went after Nokia. I have my company, and then I started to do something else. But this is just telling that I didn't like my time at Nokia. It's usually people are very fascinated that, oh, you have worked at Nokia. But then I'm saying that actually the work at Nokia, that was not that good time when I think about my own personal learning and my personal doing. I was working as an outsider or consultant before for Nokia. They were listening to me, but when I went inside Nokia, nobody listens to you because you are inside, but then they wanted to have some outsiders. So in that sense, that wasn't a good time for me at Nokia, but I have been working as an entrepreneur for maybe, I think since 2007, yeah. And I've been working with many organizations, and I love to be outsider because then people are actually paying for me. Of course, they were paying when I was working at Nokia, but they are paying for me. And when they are paying, they are really listening to what I have to say. And what I really like in my work is that I'm working for different areas. So for example, now I'm working in the project that we are thinking about the future of cancer treatments. And in cancer treatments, we are thinking about future of immuno-oncological treatment, which is a new, very futuristic way to treat cancer. It has had very positive effects for cancer patients, even these kind of cancer patients who haven't had any hope. And after getting this immuno-oncological, immunotherapeutical treatment, they have practically cured. It's not working for all. It's working maybe for 10 to 20% now of the cancer patients, but in the future, this could change. And well, this is one example of the project. I have been also working thinking, for example, future of traveling, and also, of course, future of technology and so on. So this is future of living and so on. So this is what I like in my current work, that I can practically work in different kind of areas. And I have the knowledge of how to look at the future. I have the knowledge of how to collect the trends, how to collect the weak signals for my customers. So this is something that I really like, that I can help my different customers in working in different fields and different areas.
Yeah, I think that our listeners would want to know, what your big predictions are coming up in the next few years or next decades. As a futurist, what's going to happen next?
Yeah. By the way, the name of my company is What's Next Consulting. And I was trying to kindly say to you that futurists don't predict the future. We are trying to look at the different alternatives, what could happen in the future. But I could say some ideas that I have about the future, some big things that could definitely change the future. So if I would bet my money on, for example, some technologies and look at the changes of some technologies, I would look at synthetic biology. And then the other one is quantum computing. And these are the two things that I would bet my money on, these technologies. I'm very interested about synthetic biology. It's actually something, when I'm writing my science fiction, that synthetic biology is creating so much possibilities, so weird stories, what could happen in the future. So for those listeners who are not familiar with the synthetic biology, so a hint is that Google it, but in the nutshell, it's something that it's like extreme gene manipulation. It's something that we are creating totally new lives. Where in synthetic biology, there are these what is called biobricks. So they are genes that are making some feature for the living creatures, for example, glowing in the dark. So then you can actually order these genes from internet, from some companies, and you can start to create your own new organisms. And that creates huge possibilities for the future. If we are thinking, for example, food production, fuel production, medicine, and so on. But of course, it's creating huge threats to the future. And this is something that I'm saying to, for example, when we are thinking about different security organizations, I'm always saying that be familiar what is happening in the field of synthetic biology, because there would be also very big threats when it comes to that. But huge possibilities. I try to think positive when it comes to the future.
Do you think this is the future of human evolution?
Yeah, that's interesting what we can do. It's now we have this new innovation called gene scissors, CRISPR-Cas9, and we can actually do these kind of like design babies with much more easily, and that has already happened because in China there was a scientist creating these two babies, twins, and he modified the genes of the twins so they can't get HIV virus. And in a sense, that's quite good, doesn't it sound? That these two babies, they can't get infected with the HIV virus. But the challenge is that we don't know. We don't have all the information. So now it has actually, now we have found out that those people that have the gene mutation, that they can't get the HIV virus, they will have a higher possibility in dying for flu, which is not very nice. And so there are challenges, and luckily in many countries there are legislations that are saying that we can't do these kind of things unless we know better. But then there are some other countries who don't have this legislation, so then this is a little bit challenging. But the reason that I really like to write science fiction stories is that I think it's very important that we will discuss of all the pros and cons of new technologies. so we would know that where to go and where not to go, and what to be prepared for and what to be worried about. So I think that this is very important, and this is what is the task of futurists, to talk about these different kind of possibilities. And of course, when we talk about different possibilities, that, for example, this and this bad future will happen, we don't want that bad future to happen, but we want us to think about and do something that this kind of bad future will not happen in the future.
And going back to your books, do you have a favorite?
The absolute favorite of my book is a book called in Finnish, Tulossa huomenna, which is something translated to English, that what to expect from tomorrow. And it's talking about megatrends, and it's talking about future of the whole world. And it's talking about the population, it's talking about how we are living, it's talking about how are we traveling from places to places, it's talking about raw materials, it's talking about the environment, what is happening to the environment. It's talking about climate change, it's talking about digitalization, it's talking about what we are going to eat in the future, it's talking about what we are going to, what are the diseases that we are getting in the future, it's talking about the globalization. So I have to say that that's the biggest work that I have been doing. I think that actually that could be my second doctoral thesis book. It has over 1,400 citations in the book, and that it was really, really big work. Unfortunately, it's only in Finnish. But I have a couple of my books are also in English, but then I noticed that for me, the translation is quite costly, and that's why I have this newest book only in Finnish.
Now I know you don't like to predict the future really, but what does the future hold for Elina?
I want to be a free spirit, and then I have one ambition. I don't know if that's going to happen, but I would really like to do my second doctoral thesis, and that's for the military school in Finland, and that's what I'm aiming now. And I don't know if that's going to happen, but I'm working on the process to do that. And my idea would be to make a PhD thesis about how you can use science fiction in anticipating the future for military purposes.
That's amazing. Elina, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on the show. Thank you so much for your time. And I hope we can get to geek out together at some point in the future.
Yeah, that would be very nice. And it was absolutely nice to talk to you and have my listeners in UK, isn't it so?
Absolutely.
All over the UK, all over the globe. Yeah, of course, yes. And take care and have a nice future to you.
You've been listening to Metaverse with me, Francis Hellyer. Thank you to my guest, Elina Hiltunen, for a fantastic conversation. Tweet us at MetaversePod with any suggestions or feedback. And if you enjoyed the podcast, please share a link on social media. You can sign up to receive an email when a new episode drops at our website, metaverse.fm.